Let's get your immediate reaction to the latest developments involving UK relations with Iran. A horrible blow after the ransacking of the British embassy in Tehran. What's your reaction to this?
The behavior by the Iranian regime is thuggish, it's unacceptable, it violates all the norms of international law, and I think it indicates the nature of the people we're dealing with. And this is a regime that is exporting instability and terrorism around the Middle East. It's trying to acquire nuclear weapons capability. Britain is one of a number of countries standing up to the regime very firmly against those things, and this is their retaliation.
How close is the world to seeing a major escalation, even a military escalation, involving the West and Iran?
Well, I hope very much that we can keep this diplomatic rather than moving it to any question of military action. But the fact is the Iranians, or the regime, keep on behaving in this way. The fact is the international community has made its position totally clear on the unacceptability of nuclear weapons capability in the hands of this Iranian regime. And what they're doing, and I spend obviously a lot of time out in the Middle East, what they're doing in terms of trying to destabilize situations there, in Iraq, in Palestine, in Lebanon, elsewhere, is very obvious and clear. So I think they're making a huge miscalculation here. If they carry on behaving in this way, there is an inevitable escalation because it's not acceptable. And, you know, they can storm the British embassy and put ordinary civilians' lives at risk and so on and so forth. They can do all that, but the impact, they must understand, is simply to confirm people in their view that this is a regime that does not understand how it should behave.
So far, you've been unable to get those Israeli-Palestinian peace talks back on track. How much of the responsibility, the failure to achieve anything so far on the peace process, is the result of Iran's involvement on a negative side?
Well, it's always a complication. I mean, frankly, it shouldn't stop us getting this peace process back on track again. It's very important that we do it. The fact that Israel has released the Palestinian money today is a good sign. It starts to try and de-escalate the relations between the Israelis and Palestinians, gives us something to build on. The Iranian issue is a complicating factor the whole time. But, as I say, I think it's still extremely important on us to make progress and do it as fast as possible.
The Financial Times in London, changing subjects briefly, suggested this week that the Europeans are facing financial Armageddon right now, given the enormous crisis involving the euro, the strikes on the streets of London that are going on right now. Is that an accurate description?
Well, I mean, you can reach whatever word you want to describe it, but I would say it's the single most serious challenge of political leadership that we've faced for many decades, actually, in Europe. And the problem is this, that there are two options, both of which are incredibly politically difficult. And in the end, we've got to decide which one of them, however difficult, we're going to go with. One option is that we put the full weight of the nations and the monetary institution, the European Central Bank, behind the single currency, that we give it, if you like, the firepower and the absolute political will to take the economic measures necessary to stand behind the single currency. That is very, very difficult, particularly for Germany. The alternative, however, is, I think, worse, which is that the single currency then disintegrates. So I think this is really important. I don't underestimate how difficult it is for the political leaders right now. It's a big test of leadership. But in the end, we need both the short-term commitment that is absolutely clear and unequivocal that the whole resources of Europe will be mobilized behind the single currency. And then secondly, we need exactly what Chancellor Merkel and President Sarkozy have been talking about recently, which is a long-term framework of change and reform in Europe so that monetary union is put on a solid footing for the future.